Okay, so you're gonna have your last test tomorrow, test 14, sorry, test 4, topic 11, 12, 13, and 14. Okay, so before we go through some of the questions, if we have the time, okay, let me highlight, okay, those things that you need to pay more attention for tomorrow based on the questions that has been, based on the questions that that you're gonna see tomorrow. Okay, so we start with topic number 11, 12, 13, 14. Okay, so the first few questions, okay, will be on the the role of, the function of money, okay, as a unit of, basically you need to know what does it mean by medium of exchange, okay, store of value, for example, and then you're gonna have some question on barter trade, okay, what does it mean by, you need to know some of the elements of barter trade. Okay, so basically, I think you learn barter trade before. Many even before you come to UEM. So I think it's quite logical in terms of the understanding of what barter trade is, and then the functions of money. Okay, what does it mean by medium of exchange, unit of value, or store of value? Okay, and then on the definition of money. Okay, especially on whether it is what is M1, okay, and what is M2, okay, what does it mean between M1 and M2? I think we covered that in our lecture. So make sure you know the difference between what is M1, what is M2. Okay, and then beside that, we also have on this on the money creation, okay, which I think you're gonna be tested on several questions on the money creation topic. Okay, how do you calculate the reserve ratio? Okay, from the simple bank balance sheet. Okay, how much from the, if you're given certain percentage of the reserve ratio, what can be loaned out to the public? And also, I think I given you one simple in your WhatsApp. I think few days or I think last week before you set for the quiz. Okay, quiz 2, something to do on the money multiplier. Okay, of course, this formula is not complete. Okay, it's supposed to be over reserve ratio. And then this is the money multiplier. And if you want to know what is the value, you need to multiply by the amount of loan, or the by the amount of money that is given as loan, and then you're gonna get the full value. So you can check in the internet, or I think just based on the WhatsApp which I sent to you all before. Okay, for the quiz number for the quiz 2. Okay, wait, let me. Okay, so in chapter 11, okay, so you have the functions of money, medium of exchange, okay, store of value, whatnot, okay, and then on the barter trade, what does it mean by barter trade? So, and then on this slide, you have these three functions of money, okay, and then M1 and M2. So, what is included in M1, what is included in M2, okay. So that will be the first several questions, and then we go straight to the concept of reserve ratio, okay, whereby you need to know what is considered as asset, what is considered as liability from the bank perspective, okay, and then how much is given out as loan from, if you're given certain reserve ratio, Okay, so how much will be the required reserve, okay, from the, so I think this simple note that you get here, that you have here, will help you to understand this concept, okay, or you can refer to the annual slide as well, which is more, you can have more example in that, okay. So the difference between asset and liability, what is asset, what is liability from the banking perspective, okay. So, and then again, okay, on this reserve ratio thing, based on the 10% ratio from deposit, how much can be loaned out. And then this money multiplier, okay, I go and check your formula for the example I gave out in your WhatsApp, okay, before quiz number 2. So you're going to have some questions similar, because our quiz 2 also covers 2 or 3 topics, if I'm not mistaken, okay, for so some of the questions are still some of the topics, okay, that you attempted, okay, and especially from our revision from those topics, some of the questions that we managed to revise for topic 11, 12, 13, okay, go and look at those example again, okay. Some of the questions will be quite similar for tomorrow, okay. I think topic 14, we don't have any discussion on past years, okay, but on the previous topic 13, 12, I think, and also 11, okay, we have some discussion on past years, okay. So check again on this money multiplier. So how do you calculate, okay, and then also, okay, so how do you calculate money multiplier, and how much money can be created, okay, based on this formula multiplied by the amount of loan, okay, that can be, so you can get the total money created, the total money created, okay, from this money multiplier formula, okay. So that will be relevant to you, and then again, okay, I mentioned something on the revision question that we had in our lectures before on topic 11, 12, and maybe 13, 14. We don't have any revision on that chapter, okay, on the last one on aggregate demand and aggregate supply, okay. And then you also have this, so the next one will be, okay, and then the next one will be also the functions, and then we go to topic 12, okay, the functions of central bank. So when we went through this topic, okay, so you need to know basically what are the main functions of central bank, okay. So from this slide, I think you're gonna have, you can understand quite easily what are the main functions, okay, the issuance, the to issue money, to manage management of government account, okay. Okay, so sometimes you're gonna have questions which is quite, that some of the elements may seem similar to this, okay, but you need to choose the main important function of the central bank, okay. And then you're gonna have on this topic of monetary policy, which I think we discuss on the, we have the two, okay, first is on this money supply, okay, why the money supply is vertical, and then sorry, I think that one will be on, okay, so that one, sorry, that one will be on topic number, this is topic number 12, yeah, that one will be on topic 13, okay, never mind. So on the functions of central bank, okay, so basically you need to know the main functions, and then also on this monetary policy, okay. So you have from the central bank side, okay, from the government you have the fiscal policy, okay. If you go back to the previous, I think on the earlier chapter, you have on the fiscal policy, okay, of the government. And then for central bank, you have the monetary policy. Okay, fiscal policy means using tax and government expenditure, T and G. Okay, you can go back to the older slides, topic 10 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so just to compare the meaning, the difference between monetary policy versus fiscal policy. So for monetary policy, it is usually controlled by the central bank. Okay, so you have two, quantitative versus qualitative. Okay, some books they use quantitative versus qualitative. Okay, so basically you just need to know this component. Okay, no need to go too much in detail what does each of these item means. Okay, as long as you can differentiate what fall under quantitative, okay, and what falls under uh, qualitative, okay, or selective control. Okay, quantitative and qualitative. So this is under quantitative, under these the instruments. Okay, quantitative credit control. So what are the components under quantitative, and then you have this qualitative. Okay, which is what this thing is lah. Okay, which is similar to selective control credit. So this is also known as qualitative. Um, okay, qualitative policy under central bank. So what are the components within each of the functions, okay, under qualitative versus quantitative? So you need to know that just the main components, okay. What if you don't really understand what it means, okay, at least you should know why what are the meanings of qualitative versus quantitative policy, okay, monetary policy. Okay, and then and then you need to know the different types of when what else? Okay, and then certain components under especially under quantitative credit control. Okay, what it means by bank rate. Okay, what does it mean by open market operations? So pay more attention on this element here. Okay, quantitative policy. Okay, what the difference between bank rate, okay, or discount rate. Some notes I think on in unknown, I think is called the discount rate. Okay, some call it bank rate, some call it discount rate. Okay, so what is the definition or the meaning of this? You can Google in internet to find more what is discount rate or bank rate, and then what is open market operations. Okay, so that those things that you need to pay more attention. Okay, and then what else? Okay, so that will be under chapter number 12. Okay, so I think and then the remaining questions, because you have 40 questions, right? So the remaining, so basically the number of questions is quite even. Okay, you have four topics. Okay, the first two topics covers around 20 questions, topic 11 and 12. Okay, and then the remaining 20 questions will cover on topic 13 and 14. Okay, so for topic 13, you have on the demand for money. Okay, so I think you also been tested on this in your quiz too. Okay, what is transaction, what is precautionary, what is speculative. Okay, but I think most of the question, okay, will come on the concept of this money supply. Okay, and also, I mean, what is how do you understand between these three motives? Okay, transaction, precautionary, and speculative. Okay, but pay more attention on the relationship between I mean, for money demand. Okay, why is it downward sloping, and what is the y-axis, what is the x-axis, or in other words, the relationship between interest rate and money demand. Okay, and also this thing, okay, on one price interest rate relationship, because we discussed that one in detail. Okay, if you recall, go back to our video, to the lecture video which I recorded, and in your YouTube, in the YouTube channel. Okay, why is it the I think on this part here, okay, when we learn on okay, on this part, the equilibrium, why you have excess money supply, okay, especially on this, when I talk about the inverse relationship between bond and interest rate, okay. When interest rate rise, bond price fall. So I think I discussed quite detail on here, okay. I give you some simple calculation. If you want to get the same return, okay, how does the bond price reflect uh, when interest rate increase, okay, to get the same dividend, okay, what happens to the bond price, okay. If you have forgotten, okay, go back and check on that example, okay, or basically it explains, okay, the bond price versus interest rate relationship, okay, and especially on this, the money demand, okay. Money demand is divided into three, okay, the speculation motive, transaction, and speculative, okay. But especially on the relationship between the interest rate and money demand, why is it when interest rate is high, money demand is low? Why is it when interest rate is low, money demand is high? So what does it mean by that? So if you understand that, especially on this example when I give, okay, quite a detailed explanation on that, okay. So and then also on the equilibrium concept, okay. Um, okay, on this money demand, okay, on this money demand diagram, okay, where you have so what can cause money demand to shift upward, okay, what can cause money demand curve to shift downward, okay. So and what can cause the movement along. So basically, if you recall your understanding on when you learn the demand and supply in chapter 1, chapter 2, okay, earlier in your microeconomics. Okay, so it's quite similar to what you're going to be tested tomorrow. Okay, so just because it's now called money demand, okay, but the concept is still the same. If shifting is not when you have the ceteris paribus assumption, okay, other than if you plot the demand and supply, you have the price and quantity, P and Q, okay, of that good. So other than if the price changes, then it's movement along. Other than changes in price, then that will cause the curve to shift upward or downward. So it's similar here. You have money demand, you have money supply. Okay, and then the last topic, aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Okay, so the same understanding applies. Okay, what can cause the shift upward, downward, or what is causing movement along? Okay, movement along just changes in the price or in terms of money demand and money supply. The price is the interest rate lah. So changes in interest rate only causes the money demand to move along. Okay, but other than interest rate, for example, income increase, money demand will shift upward. Okay, fall in income, money demand will shift to the left. Okay, so that is what you basically need to understand. Okay, and then the concept of vertical money supply. Why money supply is vertical? Because it is independent. I mean, money supply does not change, okay, whenever interest rate change, because the quantity is fixed, okay. So equilibrium is when the two graph intersect, okay, and then so you need to understand those concepts, okay. The concept of money supply being vertical. Vertical means it is not related to or independent of the changes in interest rate. Okay, so what happens if you are at this position? What happens to the interest rate when you have excess? Interest rate goes down. When you are at below, which is excess money demand, interest rate tend to go up. And this is the explanation. So we went through this discussion as well. Okay, and also increase in what happens if money supply does increase. Okay, from M1, M0 to M1, interest rate will fall down. Okay, but basically you need to understand why money supply is vertical. Vertical means it is not related to interest rate. Okay, interest rate is only affecting expanding on the money demand. Okay, not on the money supply. Okay, and then here also same thing, when money demand increase due to income increase, for example. Okay, so what happens to interest rate? Okay, So, and then you also have the simple calculation on real interest rate, real interest rate, which is nominal minus inflation. So I think you have one question on this in your quiz as well. So I think you will have one or two questions on this concept as well. Okay. Um, okay. So the word in money demand. Okay. This is not for individual. Okay. This is for the whole country. Okay. Not for one person. Usually when we talk about money demand, is for the whole nation. So the word income, when we mention the word income here, okay, income, okay, when output income, basically income here is some books. I mean, you can refer income to as GDP as well, or output, okay, because output is referring to GDP or income. Income is measured, the national income is measured in terms of GDP, okay. So some books they use the word, for example, this slide we use the word income, okay, but the correct word, I mean the more accurate word or term is GDP. So increase in GDP, what happened to money demand? Okay, a decrease in GDP, so money demand will shift downward. Okay, so that is the thing that you need to understand lah. Okay, what can cause money demand to go up, shift upward or shift downward. Okay, so I think that's it for topic number 13. So you're going to have around 10 questions for topic 13 as well, okay, especially on the money demand, shifting upward or shifting downward. Okay, what happened to interest rate when it shift upward or downward? Okay, and then also on the money supply, why is it vertical? Okay, the meaning of a vertical means that it is not related to interest rate. Okay, and then chapter 14. Um, uh, okay, chapter 14. Okay, so the last chapter is about the aggregate demand and aggregate supply, okay, AD and AS. So again, I mentioned previously, okay, for aggregate demand and aggregate supply, please go back to your earlier lecture in microeconomics, okay, demand and supply. Why? Because the concept is pretty much related or very similar. If you talk about demand, shifting upward or downward, okay, or in terms of equilibrium. Equilibrium when demand equals to supply. So the same thing here. When aggregate demand equal to aggregate supply, the country will achieve will be at equilibrium point. Okay, so the same thing applies here. Okay, when you mention about aggregate demand equals to aggregate supply, so it will be the country will be at equilibrium. Okay, so some of the questions will be on okay, first and foremost, what are the functions? I mean, what do you understand by aggregate demand curve? Okay, so and so when you plot aggregate demand, okay, what does it mean? Okay, so demand is just like demand from the microeconomic side. Is the consumer or the people. Okay, not the aggregate supply is the producer. Okay, or the seller. Okay, so when you talk about aggregate demand, you're talking about people or consumer. Okay, you're talking about aggregate supply is for the producer or the seller. So it's the same thing here, but demand here uh, is in terms of C, I, G, and then export or X minus M. So we learned this in chapter 10 or 9 under national income equilibrium. Okay, so when you add all of this, you get the aggregate demand, the total expenditure. Okay, so first understand what is aggregate demand and why is it downward sloping. Okay, so remember the Y is price, the same thing like demand and your demand curve in chapter 2. Okay, under microeconomics, the Y is still price level, okay, but the X is quantity of GDP, okay, not just quantity, but the amount of GDP lah, GDP meaning the income value, okay. So So what does it mean when sloping downward? Okay, when price increase, what happens to GDP? Okay, ceteris paribus. Okay, and we also talking about real balance effect, interest rate effect. Why does it slope downward? Okay, in the international trade effect. So we talk about these things. So these are the reason why it is sloping downward. So please pay attention to these three factors. Okay, the real balance effect. What does it mean by real balance effect? Okay, interest effect and also international trade effect. Okay, so basically real balance, we're talking about purchasing power lah. You are being rich, you are getting richer or getting poorer. Okay, harga barang, the price getting more expensive, meaning you can buy less lah. When price decrease, you can buy more. Okay, so that is real balance effect. And then you have the interest rate effect. Okay, but you don't need to know if you get confused. Okay, at least you know in general. Okay, why are the demand curve, aggregate demand curve sloping downwards. Okay, so we did not discuss this one, so we're gonna skip. So I'm not going to focus this thing again. But as long as you know there are three components, okay, especially on the real balance effect, because we talked on this thing quite in detail. Okay, the purchasing power effect. Okay, and then also the last one, international trade effect. Again, okay, so just understand on the surface. Okay, why what is causing. I think we also discussed this. Okay, when the import becomes cheaper, okay, you're gonna buy more of import, less of export. Okay, or less of local product and whatnot. Okay, and then you also have similar to what you learned in chapter 2 in your macroeconomics. Okay, change in quantity demanded means movement along. Okay, movement along means only the price that changes. Okay, but if you're talking about change in demand, okay, means you're talking about the demand curve shifting upward or shifting downward. Okay, so you need to know the difference between what caused the demand curve to move movement along, which is just the change in price, or what can cause the demand curve to shift upward or to shift, meaning shift to the right or shift to the left. Okay, so basically you need to know just on the surface. Okay, what can cause the change in quantity demanded, this one. Okay, change in meaning is just movement along the curve. Okay, when price goes up, quantity or GDP goes down. And then you have the three factors, okay, which can cause the demand to shift to the right or shift to the left. Okay, no need to know in detail, just the component that as long as you know whether if this factor increase, whether demand goes down or demand goes up. Okay, so that because you are being tested on not on essay question, just on multiple choice. So MC2 on multiple choice, you're just going to be asked on the very surface. Okay, whether that factor, that the increase on that factor cause demand to increase or decrease or movement along. Okay, and then finally on chapter okay, so this is something. So this is just a summary. You can just refer to this one. The factor that cause demand to shift upward or to shift downward. Okay, demand goes down. I mean shifting to the right or shifting to the left. Okay, like this. Okay, so know the difference between those two, and then you have the supply curve, which is again similar to your supply curve that you learn in microeconomics. Okay. Why supply curve is shifting, is upward sloping. Okay, so okay, so I think I covered on that already. Okay, so on the supply curve, it's similar to what you learned again. Okay, when I say it's similar, if you please go back to the earlier notes on supply. Okay, because you're talking about from the producer side. Okay, so from producer, you're talking about cost of production. Anything that can cause production, that can cause the cost of production to increase. Okay, so the price will increase. Price here is the price of the product that the seller sell. So what can cause the price to increase is because increase in cost. For example, your salary, the salary of the workers, okay, increase. So that will cause the the price to increase as well. Okay, so that has to do with and then you have the short run supply curve versus the long run supply curve. Okay, short run is upward sloping, and then you have the long run supply curve, which is basically vertical. Okay, so why is it vertical in the long run? Okay, versus the short run, why is it upward sloping in the short run? Okay, so I mean, no need to because we don't really discuss this part too much in detail. Okay, so as long as you can differentiate between the short run, okay, is upward sloping. Okay, but why does it at this part, okay, when the curve is vertical? Okay, why is it vertical? Is because you have reached full employment, meaning you have used, or the country has utilized all the resources, so you cannot keep on increasing output. Okay, so that's why the supply curve is basically vertical. Okay, in the long run. Okay, so anything that can cause the input, okay, or the cost of production to increase. Okay, so what will happen um, to the supply curve? Okay, will the supply curve shift to the left or shift to the right? Okay, anything so I think you can refer to this one. Okay, usually the shifting to the left or to the right is only on the short run supply curve. Okay, because the long run is vertical, so it cannot really move. Okay, so usually when you talk about shifting to the left or to the right, for example here, when you have, if the cost of labor or wages become higher, so the supply curve will shift to the left. Okay, meaning price will go up. But if the cost of labor, the wages become cheaper, okay, meaning the producer can produce more, so supply curve will shift to the right. So that is changes in the supply curve. What happens if wages or input in the production become cheaper or become more expensive? Okay, so you need to understand this simple concept. I mean, just on this concept. Okay, so as long as the changes is not the price level, the price of the commodity itself, so it's just movement along, okay, up and down. But if it due to the outside the price, meaning, for example, when you talk about producer, usually it's about the cost of production. Okay, wages, the input, the material, okay, the raw material. Those can cause the supply curve to shift to the right or shift to the left, depending. Like if it become cheaper, it shift to the right. If it become more expensive, then it will shift to the left. Okay, so and then the concept of long run equilibrium. Long run equilibrium is when basically when demand, long run aggregate supply, LRS, intersect with aggregate demand. Okay, the long run aggregate supply will intersect with aggregate demand curve. Okay, so we don't discuss all of this in the lecture, so I'm not going to discuss this. Okay, it's not relevant for your test. Okay, so basically, and finally this part, okay, which I mentioned earlier, we discussed this part a little bit. Okay, monetary policy versus fiscal policy. So we talk about fiscal policy in chapter 10. So this is repeated again at the end of chapter 14. Okay, I don't think I discussed this. So just you need to know what is the difference between fiscal policy, expansionary fiscal policy versus contractionary fiscal policy. I mean, not in terms of the movement of the graph, just what comes under expansionary. Okay, usually expand meaning you want to make the country grow. For example, now during COVID-19, okay, the government will spend more, give more subsidy, okay, reduce GST, reduce the tax. So meaning anything that can lead to increased demand, that is what we call expansionary. Okay, and anything that can cause the country to grow slower, maybe because they want to reduce inflation, for example. Okay, if the country is, I think if the government thinks that spending has increased too much, okay, to reduce inflation, so they will go for contractionary fiscal policy. Okay, so that is certain part, I mean, on I think that I did not cover, but so you just need to know what falls under expansionary or contractionary fiscal policy. Okay. Okay. So what else? This one not relevant. Okay. Uh, Okay, so most of the questions from the last chapter, okay, has got to do with why the supply curve shift to the, why the short run supply curve can shift to the right or shift to the left, okay, and then when what is the meaning of equilibrium? Okay, when Laurent equilibrium is when LRAS intersect with your aggregate demand. So that is what happened in the, so that's the definite the concept of equilibrium, Laurent equilibrium. Okay, and then okay, again, okay, we talk about the expansionary fiscal policy, contractionary fiscal policy. Okay, so you need to know what are the difference between those two. Okay, and then okay, so basically, okay, what happened when so we talk about aggregate demand just now. Okay, so what happened if when you talk about aggregate demand, okay, in the earlier part, okay, if aggregate demand shift to the right, what happened to the price? Does the price increase or the price decrease? So I think this one is quite similar to what you learned in the in your in your chapter 1, 2 or 3 when you talk about demand and supply. Okay, demand is downward sloping. So when demand shift to the right, okay, usually the price will tend to go up lah. Okay, when if the demand shift to the left, okay, price will tend to go down. So it's quite similar what when you talk about aggregate demand. It just you have the word AD instead of D. Okay, A means aggregate demand for the whole country, but in terms of the effect on price, will be pretty much similar to what you learned earlier in your microeconomics topic. Okay, so yeah, I think I've covered most of the important parts. Uh, mm, what else? Okay, anything that you want to ask?
So of past year.
Okay, so on the past years, let me see what. Wait, so um, what else? Okay, for example, question 35. Okay, so you have this what one of reason why AD's curve slopes downward. Okay, so is it A, B, C, or D? Price level rises, purchasing power rises. Okay, so we discussed this just now. Okay, on the why demand the why does it sloping downward? Okay, on these three effects. Okay, so is it A, B, C, or we don't have much time to discuss all of the questions. Okay, so let me see if I can just share you the questions, some of the questions that we did not finish, and also the answers to it. Okay, and then you can do your own revisions towards, okay, just to prepare for the test tomorrow. Okay, so I think I will just share you some of the answers for this for the questions. Okay, so hopefully you can do some last minute revision. Actually, Dr. Wan Roshida, the coordinator, is having problem actually to upload the questions to the system. Okay, I'm not sure the portal uh, uh, is having problem or something. Okay, but anything, just prepare that the test will be up and running by tomorrow as usual. And then okay, so I think that's it for today. Okay, I will upload this video. Okay, hopefully